Thank you. Next, Mr. Sid Dinsdale.
Thank you, Nebraska Republican Party, and the host of this event for having us here in Gering. It's great to be back in Gering. I spent a lot of time here when I was a University of Nebraska student. And speaking of University of Nebraska, I'm privileged to be the only athlete I think that Tom Osborne has ever endorsed. Non-athlete, I should say. I grew up in Palmer, Nebraska, a town 30 miles north of Grand Island, working in our farm business there. But for the last 37 years, I've been in community banking. I'm privileged to have my wife and son here in the audience. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather of 3, and I'm a conservative, pro-life Republican. I am running for the United States Senate because government overreach threatens our economy, it threatens our jobs, and it threatens the ability of our children and grandchildren to achieve the American dream. And there's nothing more obvious than that right now than Obamacare. Obamacare needs to be repealed. I'm in business. It costs our family businesses $28 a minute for health care. And they're telling us what hospital and what doctor to go to. It makes no sense. So with your help, your support, we'll stop this government overreach. Thank you.
Mr. Dinsdale.
I also would like to see it separated out. As previously mentioned, the 80% of it is nutrition-based, but I'm also a realist. So far, we've had to have this inconvenient partnership with urban representatives to get something passed. We had to get something passed. There are things in there that everybody can like and dislike, but it would be better if we could just have a farm bill. After all, agriculture is the most important industry in our state, and we've been waiting a long time, all of us that are in that industry, to get this done. Nice to finally have it done. But I wish we could have a better bill. I wish we could clean it up and not have that partnership.
Mr. Dinsdale.
Yeah, I wish they would leave the renewable fuel standard alone and give us the stability we need. Right down the road here in Bridgeport's a good ethanol plant, great example of a wonderful thing in our industry, in our state, in my opinion. It's oxygen. It's really good for the environment. We retain 45% of that nutritional value of the corn to feed distillers' grain to cattle, and I think it's been a great thing for our state. But it's an example of government overreach. They can't help themselves. We have a good program, but they've got to tinker with it, Ken, as you say. And I'm about a lot less government tinkering. I want a lot less DC tinkering all across the board, and that includes ethanol.
For decades, Congress has inserted language into appropriation bills prohibiting OSHA from enforcing provisions of the 1976 Occupational Safety Health Act at farming with operations with 10 or fewer employees. Recently, the authoritarian tactics of small Nebraskan farms are now being threatened. What can you do to protect us from OSHA and the EPA here in western Nebraska?
Yeah, thanks, Nate. You're probably referring to that farm family north of O'Neill that was threatened lawsuit by OSHA. And we have to rein in these rogue bureaucrats and these rogue agencies. And that's what I want to do as a United States Senator. I want to get back to the Constitution and maybe having a leader in the White House that recognizes there's a couple other branches of government. And we've got to rein in these bureaucrats like EPA too, trying to increase their purview upstream from navigable streams where they're supposed to be. So as a United States Senator, I would fight that fight. I would do whatever the heck I could do to stop those agencies from interfering where they're not supposed to be. In fact, I would really love to shrink the number of agencies. I'd really love to shrink the authority they have now in a lot of cases. I know we need agencies for environment things sometimes, but we have so much energy in the United States and so many good things going in the United States. We have these bureaucrats who are just stifling development. I think it's almost crazy what we have for lack of leadership in our country. I would fight like heck to keep those bureaucracies away from our farms and businesses. Thank you. I agree with a lot of what these 3 gentlemen have said, but I also want to point out that the IRS is also busy enforcing Obamacare. Does that make sense to anybody out there?
No.
And what is it that we have here with the government agency that we fear? Our small businesses, our small farmers, our large businesses. We all have to pay tax accountants. I interviewed 2 of my friends who are tax accountants. They make their money off that, and they said it's too crazy for us. We can't even keep up. And their point was the special interests every year are having their way. They're inserting a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And then, as these guys have said, we end up with thousands of pages. We've got to simplify that. And I want to go back and try to shut down. Maybe we had a referendum, no change, just 1 year. Maybe we could do that as a start. We got to do something to make it simpler so that good businesses can hire people and not have the bad ramifications of my tax bill's going up or is it going down? Does anybody really know? It's craziness. The simpler it is, the better for Nebraska. The more complicated, the more the state government likes it.
Thank you, Mr. Dinsdale.
And this is one of the primary reasons I'm running this, the ultimate government overreach. We all work for the 4th or 5th month of the year to pay our taxes, and still the deficit grows. I am hopeful I could go back there and work with people to say there's a few key departments of government that are absolute, starting with the Defense Department. I'm on the Stratcom Consultation Committee for Sac Air Force Base. General Keeler spoke to us when he turned over his command. They know they've got to work with less money. Start there. And then let's go down the line. Do we really need a Department of Education, for example? A man I talked to, the superintendent of our school, says we have the first or second best public schools in the United States, but yet we have thousands of bureaucrats in Washington making over $100,000 a year telling us how to educate our kids. That does not make any sense to me. So there are ways to balance this budget. The challenge is getting somebody on board with me to do this. And I think we can do it. I'm an optimist. We're still the greatest country on earth. We just got to get better.
Thank you. Sid Dinsdale.
We can't fix Obamacare. We need to have a health system that works for all of us, but has some component of market forces in it. An example I like to use is LASIK surgery, where insurance didn't cover it, the price came down dramatically. I talk about the 3 C's of healthcare. Cash for those common cold things when you go to the doctor, catastrophic, God forbid, for cancer or transplant, and then charity care. I'm on the board of Methodist Health System, 5,500 employees. I can tell you we give a lot of charity care. It was never about access. Americans always had access. It's about cost, and we Nebraskans know that. This is an ultimate government overreach, taking over 17 or 18% of our economy. Now, not only do we have a health insurance company, now we've got somebody in D.C. telling us what to do. So I would like to answer your question and say, how do you fix it? But it's too broken. Philosophically, I am just so opposed to Obamacare because it's not who we are. We'll manage our own money a lot better than Washington, D.C. will manage our money for health care or anything else. Nate, I think you have to hold us accountable, us and the congressman, because I'm not sure there's another way to do it that is trustworthy, and then that gets back to more local, less D.C. Now, I know that's simplistic with the international terrorism that we have propagated out there by so many bad groups, but I'm very concerned about this because it's just more Washington, D.C. getting into our lives again. And it's almost to the point you wonder what country we live in, isn't it? These are things that I could not have imagined. Privacy has a whole new meaning or not a whole new meaning now. So we've got to be held accountable as United States senators. We probably are the last line of defense for this kind of thing. But we've got to get a handle on what we got out there. Snowden goes to Russia to escape from the United States. Snowden goes to Russia to escape from the United States. I am fearful of where we are on this issue. And we've got to get a handle on it. As a U.S. Senator, I would not shirk my responsibility on this. I would go after that agency. I would try to bring accountability to those agencies. Well, I've never run for office or been in politics. I've been making a budget and running a company. And I'm doing this for one reason, because the government overreach scares the heck out of me. I'm trying to do it to rein it in. And I'm a Nebraskan. Lived here almost all my life. I'm always going to live here. I'm going to self-term limit. 2 terms should be enough for any United States senator. That's part of the darn problem, Laura, that you're alluding to. So I'm going back there for one reason, that's to do the right thing. And I just think that we've got to change how we're represented and change what we're doing back there. I hope I can find other senators that want to do the right thing. And you can look at where we've raised our money. Mine's Nebraska. 86% of my money is from Nebraskans. Because I'm not looking for those Washington, D.C. supporters, because I don't want to owe them anything. I want to owe Nebraska.